Hello, children. I am back again with yet another story, and this time it is by an author called Eleanor Estes. Eleanor Estes was born on 9th May 1906 at West Haven, United States of America. She was a children's librarian for many years, and she launched her writing career with the publication of The Moffats in 1941. Eleanor's story of kindness, compassion, and standing up for what is right has resonated with young readers. Hence, today we are going to start a story called The 100 Dresses Part 1. But before we actually start, let us watch a video to get a gist of what the story is about.
Why might you be bullied? It may be your height, or lack of it, your colour, your size, where you're from, how you talk, who your family is, who your friends are, what you believe in. It could be anything that is perceived as different, but no matter what, it's not your fault. Bullying happens to kids all around the world every day. Though it can be physical, pushing and shoving, stealing or breaking things, it could also be verbal, teasing and name-calling, or even social, excluding people, starting rumours, using the internet or texting. Being bullied is not funny. It's serious. Some effects are obvious from the outside, but there's a lot happening on the inside that we don't get to see, like fear, stress, and sadness. Fear can make you afraid to go places. Sadness can make you stop acting like your true self. Maybe you don't want to do the things you enjoy doing anymore. Stress can affect your body. Your stomach might feel like it's in knots, and maybe you can't sleep. You can do something about it. No, don't fight back. The Bible gives us great advice. Romans 12:17 tells us, "Return evil for evil to no one." Here's what you could do. Be prepared. Think beforehand about what you want to say. Act confident. You could use humour to diffuse the situation. Think of ways you can protect yourself. Proverbs 22:3 says, "A shrewd person sees the calamity coming and conceals himself." Avoid places where bullying might happen, and be willing to walk away if it does. Don't walk to school alone. Take a friend with you. Label your belongings. Don't take money or expensive things with you to school. Tell an adult. Shine a spotlight on their actions. You could talk to your parents, school officials, or a trusted adult, even though you might feel like a telltale. You shouldn't face it alone. It's not easy, but it can work. You can beat a bully without using your fists.
Yes, you're right. The story does talk of bullies. We all know that bullying is a horrible thing, right? But yet, people indulge in it. Having said that, let us now see what happens in the story. First, Let us get familiar with the characters. First, we have Wanda Petronsky, the protagonist of the story. Wanda Petronsky was a young Polish girl who was poor and who went to an American school with American children. However, these children treated her differently because of many things. Most of the children in room 13 did not have a name like hers, which was difficult for them, unlike Thomas, Smith, or Allen. She stayed in Boggin's Height, which was a place that most people forbidden going to. And she wore a faded blue dress that didn't hang right and that was never ironed. Also, she sat in the seat next to the last seat in the last row where the rough, naughty boys who scored less marks sat. Then we get introduced to Peggy and Maddie, who sat down front and scored good marks. In fact, Peggy was so popular. She was pretty, had many pretty clothes. Her hair was curly, and she was good in studies. Maddie was her closest friend. Peggy was not really cruel. She protected small children from bullies and cried for hours if she saw any animal mistreated. And then we have Maddie. Maddie, unlike Peggy, was poor herself. She usually wore somebody's hand-me-down clothes, and by that I mean old clothes. She also wore Peggy's old clothes, which her mother would disguise with new trimmings so that people in room 13 would not recognize it. She was happy that she did not have a strange name like Wanda, and also because she did not live in that shady place called the Boggin's Heights. Now let me narrate the story for you, and let's see what happens next. So nobody knew exactly why Wanda sat in that seat, and no one really cared about it either. The only time when they thought about Wanda was outside of school hours. At noon time when they were coming back to school, or in the morning early hours before the school began, when groups of 2 or 3 or even more would be talking and laughing on their way into the schoolyard. Then sometimes they waited for Wanda to have fun with her. Poor Wanda didn't have any friends. She always came to school alone and went home alone. But a lot of girls talked to her. Sometimes they surrounded her in the schoolyard as she stood watching the little girls play hopscotch on the worn hard ground. Then Peggy would ask Wanda in the most courteous manner ever as to how many dresses Wanda had lined up in the closet. And when Wanda would say 100, all the little girls would stare at her, and even the little ones would stop playing hopscotch and listen. Then Peggy would further ask her as to what they were like. Were they all in silk, in all colors and velvet too? And here too, Wanda would reply, saying yes. And then they would let her go. And as she walked away, they would burst out into shrieks and peals of laughter. And as she walked away, Peggy would strike her with another question, which was as to how many pairs of shoes she owned. 60 pairs, Wanda would reply, and this would be greeted by cries of exaggerated politeness. Peggy would then ask her if they were all in the same colors. And no, In different colors would be the prompt reply from Wanda's side, who would then move up to the street, her eyes dull and her mouth closed, hitching her left shoulder as she walked alone. Peggy, who had thought up this game, and Maddie, her inseparable friend, would always be the last ones to leave. Peggy never felt guilty for asking Wanda such questions. She instead felt that Wanda was a liar who wore a faded blue dress to school and yet lied about having 100 dresses and 60 pairs of shoes. Plus, she never made Wanda cry, so what was the big deal? On the other hand, Maddie was feeling bothered about this business of Peggy torturing Wanda with so many questions and making her feel awkward. So sometimes, when Peggy would mockingly question Wanda, Maddie, out of embarrassment, would study the marbles that she held in her palms and roll them around and say nothing herself. Deep down, she knew that she was poor too. Maybe not as poor as Wanda was, but she wore others' hand-me-down clothes herself. She did not feel sorry for Wanda because she knew that had she been in Wanda's shoes, she would never have had lied and said she owned 100 dresses. But she wanted to ask her friend Peggy to stop. Yet, deep down, she feared, what if she became the next victim? And what if she was poked fun at instead of Wanda? Today, as she sat down to solve her math problems, she wished she had the courage to speak right out to Peggy to stop this bullying game. But she shuddered as she thought about, what if Peggy asked her in front of everyone whose dress she was wearing? She would then have to finally tell everyone that it was given by Peggy and that her mother had disguised it with the new trimmings so that it would look new and no one in her class would recognize it. If only Peggy would stop this game. Slowly she tore the note she had addressed to Peggy. After all, she was her best friend and popular too. She remembered Wanda telling her about her pale blue dress with colored trimmings and of another that was brilliant jungle green with a red sash. You would look like a Christmas tree in that, the girls had said in pretended admiration. Thinking about Wanda and her dresses, Maddie began to wonder who would win the drawing contest among girls and designing motorboats among the boys. Peggy was an amazing artist, and she knew the girl's title would be taken away by her. The next day, the teacher would announce the winners, then they would know. Early next day, it was drizzling, and both Peggy and Maddie didn't wait for Wanda since today was an important day and they couldn't miss it at any cost. They were hoping Peggy would win, and as they entered the class, they saw beautiful drawings of colored dresses hanging up the wall of the class, and everyone stopped or whistled in admiration. Miss Mason announced that Jack Pickles had won for the boys with his outboard motor design, and that all the boys' designs were exhibited in room 12. As for the girls, everyone had submitted 1 or 2 sketches, whereas the winner, Wanda Petronsky, had submitted 100 dresses, all of which were beautiful. Unfortunately, Wanda had been absent from school, so the teacher asked them to applaud the day she attends the classes. Then Mrs. Mason announced that they may move quietly around the classroom and look at the sketches. Maddie then whispered to Peggy and showed her the beautiful blue dress that Wanda had told them about. And Peggy agreed and admired the green one too. Peggy also said that Wanda was, after all, the best artist. So that was part 1 for you. We will be doing part 2 in the next session. Until then, stay safe